Crescent City Steakhouse, a true neighborhood restaurant operated by the Vojkovic family since 1934, is the oldest steakhouse in the city of New Orleans. Serving only hand-cut, prime-aged, corn-fed beef for over 80 years, Crescent City Steakhouse has become a dining destination for both die-hard locals and adventurous travelers who seek traditional, timeless New Orleans cuisine. Crescent City Steakhouse, 1001 North Broad, on the corner of St. Philip, in the heart of New Orleans. So here's the bottom line. Well, it's funny that you say that. Let me tell you. Good evening and welcome to Primetime Sports. I'm your host, Scott Alexander, and boy, do we have a ton of great stuff to talk about tonight. I can't wait. But since it's fresh on our minds, we have to begin from last night's All-SEC National Championship game from Atlanta. Talk about snagging victory from the jaws of defeat. Alabama head coach Nick Saban, well, he came into the game looking to tie the great Bear Bryant for most national titles at 6. Well, it wasn't easy. His former assistant coach, Kirby Smart, who's now the coach of the Georgia Bulldogs, was looking for his first ever national title in only his second year in Athens. Hey, the Bulldogs, they were getting their first shot at a national title since 1980. Old guys like me, you remember that? That's back when they had the greatest player of all time, at least in my opinion, in college football. His name was Herschel Walker, and he was running around and over and through anyone who dared get in his way. Hey, the game last night, though, got started very slowly for the Tide as the Bulldogs' defense absolutely stymied Alabama and their quarterback, Jalen Hurts. You remember him? He was the former SEC Player of the Year just a couple years ago, 2016. Hey, no problem, though. Saban inserted true freshman Tua Tagovailoa. I think I got that right. He's from Hawaii. You remember last night he was fantastic, and that was just the spark the Tide needed. Hey, they stormed back from a 20-7 deficit. I'm sure most of you saw it. They put the game into overtime, and that's where our guy Tua, he became an instant Alabama legend. Yeah, connecting with another true freshman. You had Devontae Smith, who, by the way, LSU fans, I know this hurts. Well, he's right down the road from Amite, Louisiana. That's right up the road, towards Baton Rouge. And oh, by the way, Smith only had 6 catches in the entire regular season. And he gets that big one. Hey, congrats to Alabama. They won their 5th title in the last 9 years. That is what dynasties are all about, and we were watching excellence going on right there in Tuscaloosa. Hey, by the way, now for the team we really care about down here, the New Orleans Saints. That's right, they won their 8th playoff game ever and their 7th in the Sean Payton, Drew Brees era. It wasn't easy on Sunday, but, hey, the Saints survived that frantic finish against Cam Newton and the Carolina Panthers. Hey, the defense for the Saints, they bent a lot, but they did not break. As first-team All-Pro selection, Cam Jordan was spectacular. He led the charge. He had several sacks and batted balls. He was all over the place. He is truly one of the Saints' best players, certainly on defense. On offense, though, the Panthers, they took away the Saints' vaunted rushing attack. So Sean Payton, well, he turned to old reliable, a guy named Drew Brees. You remember him? Who threw for 376 yards and a couple touchdown scores. Hey, receivers Michael Thomas, who did not get in the end zone, but he had tons of catches. And former Panther Ted Ginn, they both had huge games. Who could forget Ginn's 80-yard touchdown catch to get the Saints offense rolling? Hey, but now it's on to Minnesota, where the Saints were convincingly beaten by the Vikings 29-19 in that season opener. You remember that one? And although the Saints are very much improved since then, particularly with the emergence of likely Rookie of the Year, Alvin Kamara, they're still 3.5-point underdogs this Sunday at U.S. Bank Stadium. It should be a good one. Hey, by the way, the Dirty Birds in Atlanta, they went out to L.A. They upset the Rams, and they're going to play in Philly this weekend against the Carson Wentz-less Philadelphia Eagles. And how great would it be for the Falcons and the Saints to match up in the Superdome for the NFC Championship game? Both teams would have to win to get there. Lots of work to do first. Hey, but how about the AFC? The Pats, well, they're always there. They host the surprising Titans who beat the Chiefs. And also Leonard Fournette and the Jaguars head to Pittsburgh to face the Steelers. That is defense versus offense. That should be a fun one to watch. That's right before the Saints game. And now on to hoops. How about college basketball in South Louisiana? I can't say enough about it. It's been absolutely amazing so far this season. The LSU Tigers, they lost the heartbreaker to Kentucky last week, but they went to A&M on Saturday and stunned the 11th-ranked Aggies with not one, but two incredible long three-pointers by freshman Tremont Waters in the last 15 seconds of the game, including a 35-foot dagger at the buzzer, which everybody in the country was talking about. That gave LSU a 69-68 victory. Hey, the win, by the way, it was the highest-ranked opponent on the road that LSU's beaten since 1992 when Shaq was still playing for the Tigers. Hey, Tulane, huge win over SMU, who won 30 games last year. UNO, 4-0 in the Southland Conference. Southeastern is undefeated. They're tied up there at the top, and Nichols is in third place. All three teams doing great. And I can't not say about anything about UL Lafayette. University of Louisiana Raging Cajuns are first in the Sun Belt Conference. Hey, it's up and down. The Pelicans up and down. What are they doing? Greedy Williams, freshman All-American. Arden Key and Kevin Tolliver, they're headed to the draft. And former Tulane head coach Mack Brown is in the College Football Hall of Fame. You remember old Mack Brown when he was with Texas. By the way, we have Jay Ladner, head coach of Southeastern, Sean Kelley, the voice of the Pelicans, and Andrew Doak to talk about all that stuff we love. Coming up next on Primetime Sports.
Oh, yeah. Fire stuff. This for New Orleans. Who that nation? Who that? Who that? We that, we that. Who that? Who that? We that, we that. Who that? Who that? We that, we that. Saints going all the way. Saints going all the way. Kumbaya, this the Who That Nation. Game on the line, you can bet we take them. Go black and gold, black and gold. Don't stop, boy, we trying to win the Super Bowl. We rock and roll, rock and roll. Touchdown, go Saints, we gonna do it some more. We rock and roll, rock and roll. Touchdown, go Saints, now give me some more. Who that, who that, holla, who that, who that, holla, who that, who that, holla, who that, who that, who that, who that, who that nation. Black and gold, black, black and gold. Oh yeah. Fire up. Black and gold, black and gold, black, black. Who that, who that? They ain't ready, they ain't ready, they ain't ready for us. They ain't ready, they ain't ready, they ain't ready for us.
Welcome back to Primetime Sports. I told you we have a great show for you, and we're starting it right off the bat, well, with the voice of the New Orleans Pelicans, but he's also an integral part of the Saints organization. Yeah, he's one of the guys that announces the preseason games. It's Joel Myers, John Stinchcomb, and Sean Kelley. Sean Kelley's been with the Pelicans for many, many years, was Tulane before that. And, of course, now he's doing a lot with the Saints, digital media, et cetera. And here he is once again. He was on the show before the Pelican season, and now we're getting a mid-season report. Welcome back.
Thank you, sir. It's good to be back.
How are you, man?
It wasn't that long ago that I was in this chair.
I know. You were in the chair.
And now we're, like, what, almost 40 games into the Pelican season.
Well,
It's
you're one of the few people that's totally invested into both of our pro teams. I mean, we know there's a few of you, but you're the one out in the open. And that's why I wanted to bring you in while they had their first playoff win going into the second week. And then also, obviously, the Pelicans are All-Star breaks a month away, and I want to get an update there. Before we do, I was curious about this watching the game last night, because I'm watching the Pelicans also, and I'm going back and forth with the national championship game. But I was wondering, because the game ended, but you have post-game duties. Did you get a chance to see any of the national championship game?
As I was waiting for Coach Gentry outside the locker room, there was a TV across the hall. So I'm watching the game, kind of like you, waiting for Coach Gentry.
You saw? Do you remember? Or around this?
It was Georgia by 10, so it had to be 20-10 at that point.
Okay.
And I'm thinking to myself, okay, if Coach hustles up here, I can get to my car and at least catch the rest of the third and the fourth quarter on my way back across the lake. So I was glued to the radio. No offense to our Pelicans Radio Network host for their post-game side. I didn't listen to a lick.
Not last night.
No, I listened to the football game the rest of the way home. It was amazing.
So you heard it in the car, the big touchdown?
Yes.
And I'm assuming you saw the highlights since then?
Oh, yeah. So then my poor wife then had to put up with me going to the television.
DVR?
Right. To go back and check it all out.
The life of a wife who has to live as a sports person.
Yes.
All right, let's talk about the sports in the city that we love. Let's just jump in with the Saints. I mean, you every time I've been at a game, you're there. I know you have your Pelicans duties first, but you were at the game this past weekend. What did you notice?
Just noticed a revival of Who Dat Nation.
Yes.
Something that they had been I don't want to say that the fan base had been dormant. Obviously, the last 3 seasons kind of tamped down a lot of things, but it was this explosion and celebration of what turned out to be, a remarkable season. And now you get the postseason feel all over again. And whether it's the NFL or Major League Baseball, Major Division I college, it doesn't matter. The postseason feels different.
Yes, it does.
And even as a fan, you can't take a break. And it was interesting. There was all that criticism after Cam Newton got hit.
Yep.
And sure enough, all the Carolina media and all the talk, some of it nationally, was about these classless Saints fans booing Cam Newton getting hurt. And I thought about the moment all over again. And then you go back and you work your way through the timeline of events there. They weren't booing Cam Newton getting hurt. They were getting ramped up for what was going to be a huge third down play. And so in the postseason, when even as a fan you can't take a play off, the Saints fans did not take a play off. It got construed as something else, but it spoke to how electric that atmosphere was and how good those fans were.
I mean, when I was sitting there before the game, I realized that none of us have been to a Saints home playoff game since January of 2012. And I hadn't even moved back yet. I remember flying in just to see them play the Lions, not doing the media thing, sitting in the stands. And, for a while there, they were getting a lot of games. Obviously, 2009, even 2006. But it had been 6 years. And the fans did show up.
Yeah, they sure did. I mean, it was a great atmosphere. One can only hope that they'll get one more crack at it in the NFC Championship game. There's so much that has to happen first.
Right, exactly.
And, it's interesting. Carolina got, the wrong end of it, from a fan and hostile environment. Now the Saints, who just benefited from it, now get it flipped on them. And the crowd in Minnesota is very, very good. The stadium's gorgeous, and it's built for sound to be a factor. So all the things that the Saints enjoyed as the home team this past week, they now have to deal with in the flip sense on Sunday.
Were you there for the season opener?
No, I was not.
But you know all about that stadium. Mm-hmm. The stadium is, first of all, Viking fans are notoriously some of the best in the NFL. And I mean notorious in the sense that it's not good for the opponent. But the fact is this is kind of a different Viking team, as is a different Saints team. No quarterback. Sam Bradford's not playing right now. Obviously, Dalvin Cook, who had such a great game, is out. Stephon Diggs is not quite as effective as he was. Thielen's now the main guy, but the Saints are different as well.
Yeah, no doubt. Both teams are completely different. I thought Sean Payton said something post-game on Sunday about how it felt like that meeting was last year. And I thought I found myself nodding my head. And I was like, he's right. Not only was it time-wise so long ago.
Well, that's Adrian Peterson right there. I mean, that's how long ago.
That's how long ago it was. And how things have changed up front for the Saints offensively, and then the maturity of the back end of the Saints defense. Both of these teams are completely different. There are similarities that you have to be aware of. Obviously, that Vikings defense is what it is. That hasn't changed so much in that they're extremely powerful at all 3 levels of their defense. It's a tall order this weekend for the Saints.
It truly is.
Yeah.
I was hoping that the Saints would be able to play the Eagles. I know everybody wants that championship game against the Falcons in the Dome, but you have to win first. And Minnesota, I think, was the worst the game we could have gotten. But going into this game, the Carolina Panthers last week obviously took away the vaunted running attack of Ingram and Kamara. What do you think the Vikings are going to do?
Well, they can defend you in a more balanced way. I think that Carolina, after the first 2 meetings, decided that we got to pick something here, and let's go ahead and try and take away that run game. By the way, we're really good at it, 3rd in the NFL against the run, and we can't let it hurt us like it did in the first 2 meetings. I find it somewhat flawed to take that side and then dare a Hall of Fame quarterback in his home building to beat you, which is exactly what Drew Brees did. I mean, he just said, okay, I will do this, and it was lights out. I'm not surprised it was a close game. I knew it would be completely different, much like I do think about this Vikings game as well. The Saints are better equipped than they were in Week 1. Case Keenum, though, on the other hand, has had a whole body of work now that benefits the Vikings. And even though there's a quarterback change there and Keenum doesn't have the resume.
He's impressed me, though, man. He has really been impressive this season.
Yes, he's done the job.
Alvin Kamara is the wild card right now, obviously. How do you think he responds, a rookie going into that situation?
He's more than equipped. He's so mature for his age. Rookies, I think, at this point of the year are not rookies anymore. They've been through enough. I get a little concerned after the Andrus Peat injury.
That's very concerning.
With regard to the Saints' run game. I think there's something to be wary of there. But at the same time, I'm not worried about anybody's inexperience at this point. or not being ready for the moment either. Not with this group.
Defensively, Saints have weathered some injuries. You saw it affects them at times. There's times Kenny Vaccaro is a liability with his lack of foot speed, but there are other times I thought he could have really come up big for the Saints in this particular game. No Vaccaro, no Klein, obviously no Okafor. They seem to come up big when it matters against the Vikings, and that crowd, how do you think that's going to turn out?
Well, the crowd won't be so much a factor for that side of the football. The crowd's going to quiet down for them. I think they'll be able to communicate just fine. But they have lost the great communicator. A.J. Klein truly was the great communicator of the Saints defense. It has shown in recent weeks with him out. But then again, they've gotten the job done. It took until the last series against Carolina. But think about the last series just for a moment. Who made the big plays down the stretch defensively for the Saints? Marshawn Lattimore breaks up the pass intended for Funchess.
Yes.
Cam Jordan comes up huge twice. And then Von Bell, who has stepped in seemingly pretty well for Vaccaro in his absence, is the guy that comes on the blitz to put the first lick on Newton to end the game. So all those things, I think, benefit the Saints as far as not breaking, but being able to bend and hold a little bit.
I think Will Smith is smiling proudly on the Saints Ohio State Buckeye players. Two of them are obviously Pro Bowlers. You know, we talk about Michael Thomas a good bit, and, of course, Marshawn Lattimore. But the two that came up, I thought, big were the other two. Ted Ginn had a huge game against his former team, and then, obviously, Von Bell had some big-time plays. Ohio State players are really treating the Saints well.
Yeah, Ted Ginn against his old team. I loved every bit of it. John DeShazier even said to me before the game, he said, Ted Ginn is going to be a major factor today. And lo and behold, the first big bomb of the day was the 80-yard touchdown pass.
The only thing that the Saints did, they were on life support on offense, and that 80-yard play, they had 4 total yards before that.
Right. I think they were what? Other than the first down by penalty, they had 2 3-and-outs to start the game. Remarkable. And then Ted Ginn also had a couple of key catches later in the ballgame. What a season for him. You and I both know his reputation over the years. One of the fastest guys in the NFL. Can take the lid off, but can you trust him sometimes on even the most routine catches? He's kind of erased that resume. I think he's had a remarkable year for the Saints. What a pickup.
He is a legend in the state of Ohio. I mean, a legend, a high school, just phenom, obviously Ohio State guy, and now he's showing finally in the pros that he is really good too. Hey, I got to talk Pelicans now. I love NBA basketball. I have so much optimism for this team. I really do. But they frustrate me so much. And I know that they can be good. I feel like any moment now they can rip off 7-8 wins. But you're there every day. Give me the lowdown. What's going on with this Pelican team?
It's hard to trust them, isn't it?
Yes.
I mean, you've been around the NBA for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And so you've seen, obviously, different teams through different eras of the league. And so you kind of see it all at some point. I don't know if I've seen a team like this that I just have had a hard time trusting. And the reason I say that is this. I walked into the training room last night when I got to the arena, and I was kind of half joking. I said, tonight's the start of a 10-game win streak.
There it is.
And the trust thing is I can trust somewhat that this team can rip off 10 wins in a row, but I also have this hard time trusting that they won't play like they did last night or last Wednesday at Utah and have a nice win, but then go to Memphis, this week and say, let's maybe not have to work so hard, and then all of a sudden your 10-game win streak is 1-1, 2-2, 3-4, 5-6, 500 basketball, and that's the grand mystery with this team. I thought it would have corrected itself by now.
Well, I mean, we thought that when they ripped the 3 off, the 2 road wins a couple weeks ago, Orlando, Miami in particular, that was nice. Come back with the win against Brooklyn when Rondo gets 25 assists. You look at the schedule, it's like, oh my gosh, Dallas and New York at home. New York's playing good basketball, but not on the road. They only had a couple wins on the road. And then you lost both of those, and then you come back, like you said, with the Utah win on the road. It's just, I don't know what to expect ever. It makes it exciting.
It does make it exciting, but it also makes you nervous because you sit there and you think to yourself, okay, what if we're getting toward April and the Pelicans are either fighting for a particular seed or even just to be in the playoff picture, period, and you just cringe thinking that if I go back and look at that Dallas game at home or the Sacramento game at home, was that the game that's keeping us out?
Oh, yes.
Oh, and that'll make you nuts.
I think about that all the time.
Right.
I think about it all the time.
And so then you feel like, okay, well, did you make up for that loss by stealing a win somewhere else? I don't know. We'll see. I said what I said going in the training room last night. I hope I'm right. But I can't trust it.
And now the Clippers are playing good basketball, and that's the team. I know it's way too early to talk playoffs, but we all are looking. We all look every day. And the Clippers are now all of a sudden, they ripped off a bunch of games in a row. They're only 2 back. Are the Pelicans in the playoffs, or are they that one odd team out?
I think they're a playoff team. I do. But it's going to be nerve-wracking all the way there. Is that fair?
It's fair.
Okay.
No, it's fair.
There's all kinds of talent there. A great example of this talent was last night, or earlier this week. I can't remember which night it was now. It's all running together. The game against Detroit, as to which Anthony Davis goes down with an ankle injury in the third. Yeah. And then Cousins, who kind of had a slow night because they attacked him so much, all of a sudden he steps up and has at least 15 in the fourth.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, you get a break here because no more Anthony Davis, but you still got to deal with this guy. And
that's a nice luxury.
It's a nice luxury, but that's kind of what you had expected with this team all along. And if we see more of that, I think they're in good shape.
Well, I'll tell you what, you do yeoman's work. I'm impressed. You're even doing stuff with Fox Sports. Congratulations on your career, and I know it's going to continue getting better.
I appreciate it. I'm awfully blessed, and thanks for having me.
Please bring us a win in Memphis.
I'm going to try.
Please. He's going to Memphis. He's jumping on right now. They play tomorrow night. By the way, Tulane Green Wave, they play the college Memphis team tonight. So we got a lot of local flavor up there. Hope everybody gets some good barbecue. Hey, coming up next, I've got the head coach of the very surprising Southeastern Lions. That's right. Only UNO and Southeastern in that 13-team Southland Conference are both undefeated right now, playing great basketball. And by the way, they did something that LSU, Louisiana Tech, and ULM did not do, and that's beat powerhouse from the Southland, Stephen F. Austin. So Southeastern's got it going on. We have their head coach, Jay Ladner. And later in the show, we're also going to talk about the national championship game that happened last night, Alabama's stunning win over Georgia, and, of course, more Saints and more Pelicans with relatively brand new reporter, anchor at WWL, Andrew Doak. All that's coming up next on Primetime Sports.
The owners of the Delachaise Wine Bar on St. Charles Avenue have opened up their newest creation uptown on Maple Street called Chez Delachaise, a new local wine bistro featuring a larger menu of small and large plates, a brighter atmosphere, and full table service. Additionally, patrons can enjoy a large patio out front as well as an extensive wine list offering selections from around the world. It's Chez Delachaise, 7708 Maple Street between Carrollton and Broadway.
Rock and roll will never die. It's old New Orleans, my oh my. Come on, baby, let's go rock and roll at the city lane. All night, let's roll, let's rock and roll. Baby, do the rock and roll. At the mid-city lanes, the home of rock and roll.
Fall in love with autumn with PJ's new seasonal lattes. Our pumpkin latte brings you all the flavors of a pumpkin pie with hints of cinnamon and nutmeg, like your favorite holiday dessert in a cup. And our s'mores latte with flavors of toasted marshmallows, warm milk chocolate, and graham cracker cinnamon is sure to bring back campfire memories. The PJ's Fall Seasonal Lattes, available at your local PJ's only for a limited time.
Hey, welcome back to Primetime Sports. Hey, we've been talking Pelicans and, of course, the Saints with our man Sean Kelley. We're going to switch gears to college basketball. I've had a lot of coaches rolling through here lately. Obviously, Alvin Gentry came not too long ago, general manager Del Demps, but a lot of college guys. John Brady, former LSU coach, and, of course, Mark Schlesinger over there from the Southland Conference at UNO, Mike Dunleavy, Will Wade. We've had them all. You know what? There's a team right down the road that's playing some great basketball. And remember we had Schlesinger last week? They're 4-0 in the Southland Conference, first place. Well, there's 13 teams in that conference. And the team that's right nipping on their heels, the only other undefeated team in conference are the Southeastern Lions. And that's right, I have their head coach right here. His name is Jay Ladner. And it's his first time on Primetime Sports. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Scott, thank you very much. I'm very, very honored to be here today.
I'm honored to have you. And by the way, I have to hear your story because I know a little bit about it, but I think it's remarkable. First of all, your team, congratulations on the success you're having.
Thank you.
I went to a game last year when UNO had that remarkable run, and then you guys went into the Lakefront Arena and put a whooping on them. And I'm going to say this. I was sitting there with some other coaches watching the game, and we're all like, wow, this team plays great basketball, and that's no fluke.
Well, I certainly appreciate that, and that's a great compliment, and certainly I accept that with great humility, Scott.
Right.
But it's always good to hear people like yourself that have a great background in basketball, and then certainly some of the guys that you were telling me that you were visiting with there with John Brady's and so forth. It feels good to know that those people of that stature, maybe are complimentary of your program.
And it's really nice to watch, too. I mean, it's a fluid basketball, but what I also love is you're represented by, like, the entire South. Your top 8 guys, you have a player from Florida, a player from right outside of Atlanta, Norcross, Georgia, a player from Alabama, a player from Mississippi, a player from Arkansas, and 2 from Louisiana, and, oh, by the way, and a guy from New York as well.
Yeah.
So you're well represented in Dixie.
Well, that's important. Recruiting is the lifeblood of any program.
Yes, it is.
And then, one thing that I found, not being a Southeastern graduate myself and really being a lifelong resident of Mississippi prior to coming to Southeastern, was how impressed I was when I got there and how incredibly diverse the student population is there. You're looking at, they have about 16,000 students, or we have about 16,000 students at Southeastern. There's a lot of great things going on at the university as well, and I think our basketball team represents that as well.
Athletically, I mean, when you take each of the main programs, and I'm not trying to say anything because I don't know about anything but basketball, football, and baseball.
Sure.
I'm sure the other programs are fine. But baseball, I mean, come on. You got that thing rolling. You're now a regular tournament team. Ron Roberts has seen tons of success in football, and now in basketball. Southeastern, it's going on over there.
It really is. It's a emerging giant, I think, and that's one of the things that attracted me to the program. I felt like that there was just an incredible amount of potential, and you have to give our administration credit, particularly our athletic director, Coach J.R. Teagues. I think who drives a lot of that. And he's our former baseball coach who kind of laid the groundwork for a lot of the success that they're having in baseball right now. But baseball has become a national brand, and they are exciting to watch. I'm a huge baseball fan myself, and then obviously Coach Roberts, what he's done in the last few years has been incredible. So it feels good to be part of that. I said, my first year, we were trying to get men's basketball up to the level of our football and baseball program. So hopefully we're experiencing enough success. I know there's a lot of excitement right now, but still a lot of basketball to go, Scott. We've got still some work to do. Well,
there's been a power. I know UNO won the conference last year, but Stephen F. Austin has been the team. Okay, yes. They were remarkable just a couple years ago, 17-1, did damage in the tournament up to the Sweet 16, played some great basketball. But you're the only team in the state that has beaten them this year. How about LSU? 1 point loss. It was a big loss. They missed the layup at the end. Louisiana Tech, UL Monroe, but the team that knocked them off was Southeastern Lions.
Well, Stephen F. Austin, I think they've lost inside the Southland Conference, and they're a national, they're certainly a national brand themselves, talking about national brands.
Lumberjacks.
The Lumberjacks, they compete with everybody. They've lost two. Prior to our game of opening the league season, Stephen F. had lost to Mississippi State by 5 or 6 points, and I think Missouri had beaten them by 1. And so they have been the standard. Certainly UNO emerged last year.
Yeah.
They've got a great program and culture. Coach Schlesinger does at UNO, and that's really developed into an emerging kind of rivalry there. It's kind of exciting every game that we have played them. But, Stephen F. Austin has been the standard. I think they've lost 10 league games in the last 5 years total. So certainly a great win for our program. But I'll be honest with you, our league, I really believe as a kind of a kudos to our league that of the 13 teams, there's not a lot of difference between number 1 and 13.
There really isn't.
And there's no, we can't relax. UNO can't relax. Stephen F. obviously can't relax. None of us can. Every game is a battle. And so we've won 3. We've got 15 more to go, and we expect a war every night.
13-team conference, great basketball. But let's go back before I get into your team, because I want to tell people what kind of basketball you play and some of your players. But what about yourself? Give some background on you. How did you get to Hammond? Where'd you come from?
Well, I certainly don't have the road, I don't think, most taken to Division I. Most guys that get into Division I basketball, when they finish in college, whether they played or not, and I was very fortunate to play for an outstanding coach, and coach, he's no longer with us, Coach M.K. Turk, who a lot of New Orleans folks will be able to recognize.
Phenomenal guy.
And I think recruited you, Scott, when you were at De La Salle, right? But a great guy. He passed away, unfortunately, from a blood disorder a few years ago, and that was a big loss to me personally, as well as a lot of people at the University of Southern Mississippi. But I was fortunate. I grew up in Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and fortunate to attend University of Southern Mississippi and play for the Golden Eagles on scholarship. We were fortunate to win the NIT in 1987.
Yes, you did. I remember.
And so I was able to play with some outstanding teammates. From there, when I graduated college, I have just a very odd. My dad was a high school coach in Mississippi, and the last thing a high school coach wants is their son to go into coaching.
They know what it's about.
They know how hard it is, and they don't want you to have to experience all that. And I was actually a pre-med major, but I knew from the time I was a young boy that I wanted to be in coaching because I saw the type of impact that my dad had on young men.
Yes.
And so I graduated in pre-medicine. I ended up taking a pharmaceutical job, trying to discern whether I actually wanted to go to medical school or not. The Lord put me in Bay St. Louis, or my territory happened to be from Covington, Louisiana to Pascagoula, Mississippi, and being from Hancock County originally, family, we had a home right there in Kill. So as I was able to get out of college, I had a place to go stay. My family always maintained a summer home, weekend home, like a lot of folks in New Orleans
a lot
do.
of people in New Orleans,
Hancock County. So, but it worked out great for me there, and I was close. We had one of my dad's former players happened to be the athletic director at St. Stanislaus High School.
Great school.
A great school. And as it worked out, I would spend a lot of my afternoons over there watching them practice because I had a connection with the athletic director who actually was the assistant basketball coach as well. And anyway, the way it worked out, they had a coaching opening. Brother Paul Montero, who was the president of the school at the time, and athletic director Jerry Spell approached me, would I be interested? I had no coaching experience whatsoever.
Went straight to head coach?
Straight to the head coach.
Wow.
Straight to head coach. And
usually you have to be an assistant for a little while.
Again, I was very fortunate.
Wow, good for you.
And was there and spent just 20 of the best years of my life there. I had an opportunity to go to Jones Junior College, which is located just north of Hattiesburg, Mississippi. They had a coaching opening there, and I said, I'd been in coaching. We'd been blessed to have a lot of success at St. Stanislaus. I said, maybe that I'm getting to the age of the challenge of coaching in college and see if I could do it. And had a great. And Jones is a very, very special place. Dr. Jesse Smith gave me, and Coach Katie Harrington gave me the opportunity to go there. And in our second year, we won the National Junior College Championship,
right. I remember that.
which opened the door for me to come to Southeastern, which has been for wonderful years. And I really feel like I've been blessed at each stop that I've had. In fact, I've had what I felt like were jobs that I could finish my career in. And so I feel like I'm living a charmed life. And here we are at Southeastern, and we're starting to experience some success with the same formula we've used at St. Stanislaus and at Jones Junior College, and certainly now at Southeastern.
Well, that is certainly the road less traveled for coaches. No, that's an interesting ride. You went straight to head coach in high school, and then on the JUCO, and then now here. Congrats on that success. By the way, as you know, as a coach, I know you're humble as well. Some of the success you have is attributed also to the great assistants you have as well. One of them being Joey Stibing, who we all know well here because he coached at UNO, he coached at Shaw, and everybody from New Orleans, if you're in basketball, knows who this guy is.
Sure. Coach Stibing, look at him, that's a young picture of him up there.
Yes,
that's
it
very
is.
Good. But we do, and Scott, you know well enough that no coaches we're only as good as our staff, and I've got a great support staff from our athletic department inside of our team in operations. Garland Wilson's in operations. Kyle Rohn, longtime Division I assistant. David Kiefer, longtime Division I assistant, was actually with me at Jones. And then Coach Stibing. And then Coach Stibing gives us that New Orleans flavor, and which is so critical to our recruiting, to be able to recruit the city. But Coach Stibing, had great success at UNO, and then he had an outstanding career overseas for the last 10 years. His children, he wanted to be able to spend more time with his children. He has two daughters that go to LSU. Yeah. And he and I had been longtime friends, and we talked, and the opportunity worked out where he was able to join our staff. And I've just been really blessed. And they're as responsible for whatever success that we're enjoying. They're just as responsible for it, certainly.
Got to talk about some of your players now. Marlon Veal, speaking of New Orleans guys, Helen Cox, this guy I watched last year, that game against UNO, and he was on fire. Yep. He's a little bitty guy, but boy, he can put the ball in the hoop.
Well, anybody in Scott, you echo what we played at Notre Dame a couple of weeks ago, and impact that he has when people see him play for the first time. There was a group of young kids that were clamoring to talk to him and touch him, as we were walking off the floor. Marlinville, in my opinion, and obviously I'm biased, but in my opinion, is the best player pound for pound in Division I. Certainly one of the most exciting. And it was the only time in the history of Southeastern we've been able to sign the Louisiana Player of the Year, and he's from right here in the city, and he's
electric.
He is
dynamite. If you haven't seen Marlon Veal, I'm not joking. You got to watch him. Yeah. I mean, he is a little ball of dynamite. He can play. He's getting some help, though, from a fifth-year senior, Jordan Capps, the big fella. They both average about 13 a game, both the leading scorers. Capps can ball.
Yes. The one thing about Jordan, unfortunately, last year in the second game of the season against Tulane, he sustained a season-ending injury, which I had never heard of up until that time in all my years of coaching, called a Liz Frank tear, and it's a tear of the tendons in your foot, and I had never heard of that. So he's just recovering from that. It's really starting to get his own. He's had a long recovery, but his return to our team has had a lot to do with our success. Big, strong, physical, future pro, and his return has been a huge impact on our success.
Well, the guy that I mentioned from different states, one of them is a two-guard, Josh Fillmore. He is out of Florida. What impact does he have on this team?
Well, he's a calm. His first game back was when we were playing at Kent State, which is about our fifth or sixth game into the season. He's returning from injury as well. We have a lot of these players that have been injured. Josh is coming off an ACL tear. An incredible number of injuries over the last couple of years. But the fortunate thing is they've stayed with it. Now they're back. So we do have some experience out there. But Josh, incredibly calm in effect. He's a great shooter, perimeter shooter. Hit some huge shots against Stephen F. Austin that kind of got us going in that game and helped us to win it. And Orlando, Florida guy.
All of your big guys that play regularly are from out of state. I mean, we mentioned Capps from Georgia, but you also got, obviously, Currington, you have Charleston, and you have Greenwood, all big guys from Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama.
Yeah. Well, we certainly are going to recruit our area. Sometimes budgetary restraints on recruiting. We've got to recruit our contact area, and that happens to be mostly in the Deep South.
With the dreadheads.
That's right.
Two dreadheads.
We got two dreadheads. He and Keith Charleston both have again vital cogs. That's what they call themselves.
Yeah, we're not calling that.
That's what they call themselves.
Right.
Both of them have the long dreads, but both are great guys. Outstanding students and great players, So really pleased with their impact.
Yeah, Greenwood's a truck inside, man. He's averaging 8.5 points, 7 rebounds. He gets after it.
I'll give you a little tidbit on Moses Greenwood. Moses Greenwood's uncle is the famous L.C. Greenwood of the
Steel Curtain.
The Steel Curtain.
The greatest defensive line in history. Me and Joe Green.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And ironically, his father, Mo's father, who looks just like L.C. That's his uncle, obviously.
Yeah, right, sure.
There were people, it created a clamor when we were at Notre Dame. I mentioned Notre Dame. We were playing at Notre Dame, and the people continued to come down there and get his dad's autograph thinking he was L.C. Greenwood.
That's great.
So that's a neat thing.
L.C. Greenwood with the yellow cleats. Who can forget those? He was the one.
I mean, Moses plays basketball with a great passion and tenacity. He's a little bit undersized, which is probably why we were able to recruit him, because his ability level was much higher than the Southeastern Louisiana 3 years ago when we were able to recruit him.
Yeah, I don't want to leave out. I'm going to give you this gift certificate from Shays Della
Awesome.
Shays. As you sign the ball, which is many greats are on this ball, Carl, the mailman Malone, and several others, you have more New Orleans guys. I wanted to just stress that. You got a guy that looks like he's a football player, but he was a quarterback at Brother Martin, but also playing basketball. It's Jabbar Singleton, and you have some transfers coming in. Von Julian, who people might remember, Riverside Academy. He played at Tulane. Maxwell Starwood at U-High, that's pretty local. Yep. And, of course, Quentin Thomas from Dunnan, also in Baton Rouge.
That's right. And I will tell you this, Scott, recruiting locally in Louisiana, as the high school and AAU programs can tell you, Southeastern, that's a critical and an important thing for us and vital to our program. And as you can see, it takes time to develop those recruiting relationships that maybe we didn't have as we took over the program at Southeastern, because a number of the high school coach, we hadn't seen a Southeastern coach in a long time. That's critical. We feel like that we have to be able to recruit locally for us to be successful nationally. And here's what I do believe. There's enough talent in our recruiting area, and I mean our immediate local recruiting area, for us to become a national brand, and that's what our goal is.
Congratulations, Coach. Keep it up. Hey, we all know about the Pelicans. We all know about LSU. They're doing great. Tulane is doing as well as they've done in years. But the Southland Conference, good basketball. And by the way, the 13 teams in that conference, the 3 within a 60-mile radius, first, second, and third place. That's right. UNO, Southeastern, and Nichols, they're doing great things down in Thibodaux as well.
Sure.
Check out some good basketball. It's all over South Louisiana. Hey, we're coming right back. We're going to talk about that national championship game. We're going to go into depth on that. We're going to go more into the Saints playoff game against the Vikings as well as the Pelicans, because we have the brand new WWL reporter / anchor. He's one of the guys that took Lions Yellen's place. His name is Andrew Doak. He's coming up next right here on Primetime.
Just sing, sing, sing. Everybody just sing, sing, sing. We'll all pitch in, we'll do our thing and make a better world to live in. And everybody just sing, sing, sing. Everybody gotta sing, let freedom ring. We'll all pitch in.
Hey, welcome back to Primetime Sports. What a treat to have Jay Ladner, the head coach of the Southeastern Lions. They're doing great things. Like I said, we've had every basketball coach in the South, but I hadn't had Coach Ladner, so that was nice to have him on. Good luck to the Lions the rest of the season. And I also want to thank Sean Kelley, who was on early in the show, but I saved the best for last, only because we're talking more Saints right here. And his name is Andrew Doak. He is the new, relatively new, anchor reporter for WWL. He took Lions Yellen's place. Him and Ricardo LeCompte both came in September, and he got thrown right into the fire, and here he is. First time on Primetime Sports, Andrew Doak. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, talk about that, man. You just came out of nowhere. You're only 26 years old. You've been in one market. You're originally from Austin. You went to Lubbock, and New Orleans is your second market. What's that like?
It's been great so far. The people have been awesome. They couldn't be more welcoming. I'm living right down in the quarter, so I just wanted to kind of be right down in the middle of it.
That is just beyond awesome. I mean, you start, and you don't go out to the suburbs. You don't even go downtown. You're like, I'm going to live in the quarter. How'd that come about?
I didn't want to be in Metairie. I wanted the real New Orleans experience. And after living there for about three and a half months now, I was like, I might move out of the quarter after a year, but I've loved it so far.
But yeah, WWL is in the quarter.
It is, yeah.
It's like a block off Rampart.
Right.
So you walk to work, I'm assuming?
I do, yeah.
Nice.
I mean, it's so close. It's like, why not just don't even have to burn gas.
Keep your head on a swivel when you leave. That's
No-
all I got to say.
no
It
doubt
is the
about
quarter.
it. Yeah.
Hey, but let's talk about what's going on. I have to get into first. We're going to talk about the Saints playoff run and your experience with that. But let's talk about the championship game last night. How phenomenal was that? A game that was kind of a dud in the first half turned out to be an instant classic.
I thought it was going to be similar to when Alabama and LSU had the rematch in the national title game where, I thought it was going to be like a 6-3, 9-6 type game where it was like a baseball score.
Sure.
But it ended up being into a phenomenal game, really. And honestly, what other team could put their backup quarterback in and be able to still win the game? I mean, that's like the most Nick Saban thing ever.
Tua was phenomenal. He did show some signs of being a true freshman, but when Jalen Hurts, by the way, a former Southeastern Conference Player of the Year just a year ago in 2016, well, he wasn't playing so great, and all of a sudden you put in a guy like Tua and it gave them incredible spark.
Yeah, no, I mean, I kind of looked around to some Alabama fans that I was watching with, and
right.
I was like, are you guys surprised that y'all yanked Jalen Hurts and you put in the backup? They're like, well, he wasn't producing. I'm like, if I was watching my team, I was like, I would be riding with the guy that brought me. But
that's the typical
that's why Nick
Bama
Saban's Nick
response.
Saban, I guess.
He just wasn't producing. We got to move on to the next guy.
Exactly right.
Nick Saban. You're a guy from Texas, outside looking in on Saban. Now you've been around LSU a good bit. You know the torment that he's provided the Tigers since 2011. well, really January 2012, he has not lost to LSU, but he hadn't lost to many other teams either, and he is now tied with Bear Bryant, 6 titles. Remarkable.
It's unbelievable. That's why he has a statue outside of Bryant-Denny Stadium. I mean, look, as far as LSU is concerned, I mean, you're just kind of judged based on whether or not you can beat them, and I think that's every coach in the SEC. I mean, he's set the standard as far as, being able to produce at Alabama, and what he's done there. I mean, I don't know if anybody can match it. I mean,
he's 12-0
he's probably the greatest
against his former assistants, which is remarkable. I mean, this guy lays the hammer down. Although Georgia was the closest, they had an opportunity. They led the entire game. They never trailed in this game. It was only tied once at 20, but they led literally until that final dagger at the very end. I can't say enough about the job Kirby Smart's done for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, no, I mean, especially in his second season.
Yep.
I mean, to be able to turn around a team like that is unbelievable, and much less to be able to do it with a quarterback as young as Jake Fromm. I mean, you lose your starter at the beginning of the season, and then to be able to make the run that they did, and the game against Oklahoma last week, I thought Oklahoma was going to win. I underestimated Georgia a lot this season.
A lot of people did all season long. 2 true freshmen, by the way, quarterbacks finished in that game. Kind of remarkable. I have to ask your honest opinion. When they got sacked for 16-yard loss, because Georgia kicked a 51-yard field goal to go ahead, that was the big difference of the game. One guy could kick and the other guy really couldn't. You had 2nd and 26. Please tell me how surprised you were when that play happened.
Unbelievably surprised. I mean, I'm
shocked.
It was just so gutsy. Yeah, and for at that moment in the game to be able to do what they did was unbelievable. Because
normally you would think, okay, they're going to chip away, try to get 10 yards on this one, maybe get 10. They don't want to leave it in the kicker's hands. But, man, a true freshman just sees that. And, by the way, the guy that catches it, more pain and salt in the wounds for LSU, true freshman from Amite, Louisiana.
Yeah. I mean, it was almost like back to the Rose Bowl like last week. It was like to just settle for a field goal try in that type of situation, and then you just in overtime you just feel like you're kind of you're putting from the rough a little bit. I mean, you're not putting yourself in a great position, and then to be able to leave the door at least open for Alabama to be able to score a touchdown and win. All
right, you get thrown in. Maybe you're our good luck charm here in New Orleans. We'll just say that. You get thrown in the mix with the Saints season. They started 0-2, and then they went on an 8-game win streak, which you started at WWL during that time. What's it like being a part of this team during a historic playoff run? They've only won 8 playoff games in 50-plus years. And they got one on Sunday.
The week that I started was when they beat Carolina, and they went on that 8-game winning streak.
Wow, you are the good luck charm.
I told people around the office, I was like, I don't know if it's me, but all I know is that since we've been here, we've been winning. So it's been really fun. To be able to see the Saints back in the mix has been like just a breath of fresh air to be able to be in New Orleans in this type of situation. And I think they got a really good shot against Minnesota, and it's 2 completely different teams than when they faced each other to open the season.
Well, you're from Austin, Texas, and obviously there's a guy named Drew Brees from Austin, Texas. Now, does kids in Austin grow up saying, man, I want to be like Drew Brees, or is he just another player to them?
No, he's big time around Austin. I mean, I went to Bowie High School. I played at Bowie High School.
Against Westlake?
We were in the same district as Westlake.
All
so
right.
Honestly, Westlake was kind of
Which
our
is where
rival.
Drew went.
We didn't really like Westlake.
Sure.
Everybody, we didn't even beat Westlake until my junior year. It was like the first time in school history, and that was like a big deal. But yeah, Drew Brees though is big time as far as Austin is concerned, and the football lore of Austin. He's a name to watch, and of course, not going to UT and ending up in the Big Ten is something that I think kind of still drives him to this day.
The only other market you've done television in besides New Orleans is Lubbock, Texas. And I know Texas Tech, I've been there several times. I know it's big there. The Red Raiders, they got good fan support. But now you're in the big leagues because you're in the NFL. I mean, in the NBA. You got both.
No doubt.
What has been the most memorable thing thus far for you being amongst this group of talented players?
It might have been this past weekend. I mean, but being able to see Reggie Bush and all the alumni
How great was that?
come back.
Yes.
I mean, it felt like almost 2009 all over again. But I thought either this week against the Panthers, maybe even that last home game against the Falcons, it felt like the Dome was kind of alive again in a way that it hadn't been in a long time.
It really did. And I felt it from the very beginning. I mean, it wasn't just when a big play had to happen or on third down. I'm talking about the beginning of the game. That decimal thing was getting up to 111. It was fun to watch. It must have been great for you to be in there for first playoff game ever.
No doubt about it. I mean, the energy was nuts, and the game was great. I thought, the Saints kind of were teetering near the end, but they were able to hold on and it was just a vintage Drew Brees game, though. I mean, they took away the running game, which has been able to carry them all season, and he was really able to do it with limited weapons, especially Josh Hill and Ted Ginn, who just stepped up huge.
Yeah, big time. By the way, the entire Dome was holding their collective breaths at the end. I mean, it got a little dicey, especially when they got inside the 20 before the penalty that Cam Newton had of intentional grounding. Hey, I have to ask you about the game coming up. You weren't in town yet when they played Minnesota for the season opener, but the Saints pretty much got dominated in that game. Both teams are very different. There's no Sam Bradford, who had an amazing game. There's no Dalvin Cook. Stephon Diggs has not been the force. You see Adrian Peterson was one of the feature running backs. That's how long ago it was. But Alvin Kamara has made a big difference on this team, particularly, obviously, the offense. What do you see going on in this game coming up?
Yeah, I mean, you think about that last game. We didn't know who Alvin Kamara was. We didn't know who Marshawn Lattimore was. I think I give the edge right now to Minnesota, partially because they're at home, and I think
they're tough to beat at home.
Their defense has just been so good. But look, at the end of the day, what I keep going back to is you have Drew Brees, and he has all this experience in the playoffs, and you saw it this past weekend against the Panthers. He looked like a guy who had been there before. Matt Ryan in L.A. looked like a guy who had been there before.
Yeah.
Case Keenum has never been in this spot before, and you wonder too, going into a situation where you've had a bye week, you always wonder if the team like Minnesota is not really in rhythm because they had a bye week and they were kind of sitting around. And you see that all the time. I think the Saints really got some rhythm going, especially after the loss to Tampa Bay. I think it's really close. I still give Minnesota the edge. But the positive is if the Saints somehow win and upset Minnesota, there's a really good chance, in my opinion, that they have the NFC Championship right here in New Orleans.
No, Atlanta would have to be Philadelphia, and that's what everybody's kind of hoping for.
Right.
Got a lot of work to do before that, so we'll just take one game at a time, as Sean Payton, I'm sure, is saying his team.
Exactly.
Hey, speaking of one game at a time, with the Pelicans, it seems like one game they're good, the next game they lose. They might get you excited with a 3-game losing streak, and then they lose to 2 teams they shouldn't lose to. What's your take thus far on this team?
I don't think they're going to stop flirting with 500. I mean, I think that's what this team is right now. I think they're so inconsistent, and every time that you show up to the Smoothie King Center or on the road to be able to watch them, you just don't know whether or not they're going to be energized or even ready to play. I mean, it's night in and night out. I don't know whether or not they really want to be there and want to be great.
It's maddening to watch sometimes.
It is.
It's because they are very talented, and I had Sean Kelley on earlier. He's the voice of the Pelicans. But if there is a time that they can make a run with the schedule, because you've already played Golden State 3 times. You've played the Rockets a couple times. You've got some tough games out of your way. Now you get to supposedly feast on some of these teams. Out of the next 8-9 games, they really have a chance to win pretty much all, I think, maybe, but the Rockets will be the only one I think they won't be favored in.
And if you're going to make a run, you got to make it before the All-Star break. I mean, teams like San Antonio, like Houston, like Golden State, they have more leeway to be able to make a run later in the season after the All-Star break because that's kind of what they circle. The Pelicans don't have that time to be able to make up. They've got to make it now because if you go into the playoffs and you're an 8 or in a 7 seed, I think you're asking for a first-round playoff exit because are you going to get Golden State? Are you going to get Houston maybe? I mean, are you going to beat them in the first round? I don't think so. And so I think you're setting yourself up for a really dangerous spot, especially if you're trying to keep DeMarcus Cousins. If you're trying to keep him around, you need to do better than a first-round playoff exit.
Yeah.
And I think that what their mission is and what they've said is that they're not trying to trade him.
No.
What they're trying to do is they're trying to be able to really
they're recruiting him the
around.
next 4 months.
Exactly.
I mean, he is going to be the key to the season. I think that they get to 45 wins, whether they go out in the first round and he sees progress. I think he might, because it all depends on if he's still enjoying his time, particularly with Anthony Davis. Hey, I got a gift certificate for you. This will get you started at one of our great wine bistros called Shays de la Shays. I know you're a man about town. It is uptown.
Nice, man.
And by the way, it's been a pleasure to
sir.
have you. And we'll
Thank
have
you
you
very much,
on
Scott.
several times. Andrew Doak is his name. This ain't the last time you're going to hear him, and he is living to the quarter. So if you're down there, yell his name out. You might see him. But I want to thank him. I want to thank Sean Kelley, of course, and then head coach Jay Ladner. Hey, I want to thank the whole crew, everybody at CST and WLAE. Both stations have been so good to us. My producer, Will Hill, and everybody that works in support. That's you, Redhead Tsunami, and the rest of the crew back there. I want to thank them all, Kenny, Juno, etc. We'll be back next week on Primetime Sports.